Good afternoon. Still on the same paper, the November 2021, paper 1, geography. I'm going through 2.4 now. Refer to the diagram of floodplain. Floodplain. What comes to your mind when you talk about the floodplain? Number 1, lower course of the river. Lower course of the river, where there is more deposition. Lower course of the river when there is more deposition. You can see there is your river. When the river is in flood, what does it do? It disposes fertile alluvium on this gentle surface that is on the sides of the river. That's where we have got our floodplain. You can see floodplain, cultivated land, which means that's why we are able to grow crops. We are able to practice farming on the floodplain. Why? Because there is fertile alluvium that is deposited on the floodplain. The soil there is fertile, which is conducive for agriculture or for farming. So you know that floodplain, we are likely to have farming there. Why? Because it's gentle, because they are fertile alluvium soil, which encourages farming. That's basically what we are talking about. So the first question reads, state the geomorphological, the word geomorphology, process that give rise to the formation of a floodplain. What do we have that is dominant in the lower course is deposition. So the geomorphological process there is deposition. When it comes like to your upper course, the geomorphological process there is erosion, which is more vertical to be specific. When it comes also to the middle course, there is erosion, which is lateral. So the answer there is what? Is deposition. Describe the gradient at x. The gradient at x is what? It is gentle. It is also flat. It is also level. That's why alluvium is able to be deposited. So this alluvium, that's why we are also able to farm on this part of the river, which is part of the floodplain, because it is gentle, it is flat, it is level. That's what makes it possible for us to cultivate there, because it's flat, it's gentle, it's conducive for farming. Okay. Then the next thing, suggest two reasons why the reasons for the wide floodplain at X. Why do we have the wide floodplain at X? Okay, that is 2.4.3. Why do we have the floodplain? There's increased deposition. You can see at X there's increased what? Increased deposition of silt or alluvium or sand on the floodplain. There is what? Increased deposition here at X of alluvium or silt on the floodplain as compared to here. So there is increased deposition that is taking place of alluvium. The rivers is shallow, resulting in more deposition. The river is shallow, resulting in more deposition. Or many tributaries deposit sediments. That's why there are more here. Or the gentle slope reduces the velocity of the river and the amount of sediment carried. Or there is irregular flooding in the area. So those are your reasons. Okay. The last part, in a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, explain the physical natural impact of flooding on the floodplain. There is a learner that asked me of how you answer the paragraph question. So I'm going to respond to that here. In a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, explain the physical or natural impact of flooding on the floodplain. So when you talk about the impact, okay, when you talk about the physical natural impact on the natural environment, here remember we are focusing on the natural physical natural impact of flooding on the floodplain. So we are saying what are the physical, okay, impact of flooding on the floodplain, which means we are concerned about this part of the floodplain, this part of the floodplain. What are the physical impact of flooding on the, when it floods, what is likely to happen on the floodplain? Okay, are there any physical changes that takes place in as far as the floodplain is concerned when we have a flood? That's basically what we're talking about. So a paragraph, number 1, what you're supposed to do, guys, you answer it in form of a paragraph. Do not answer in point form. You answer it in form of a paragraph. Do not answer it in point form. Okay. Number 2, you should have a factor supported by a qualifier. Factor and a qualifier. What it means is we need fully explained points. This is what it means. Avoid generalization. We need fully explained points. Avoid generalization. Do not generalize. Do not generalize. We need fully explained points. Do not generalize. Fully explained points. That's what you need when you are answering a paragraph question. So let's go through this. What can we include in this? In a paragraph of approximately 8 lines, explain the physical, natural impact on the floodplain. What will happen in the floodplain as a result of flooding on the floodplain? Number 1. The deposition of silt increases the width of the floodplain. This is the physical impact. So we are saying now, deposition of silt. What does it do? It increases the width of the floodplain. That's basically what we are talking about. We are having more alluvium deposited, which means the width of the floodplain increases. Okay. That's basically what we are trying to say. There is deposition of silt, but what is the impact of that deposition of silt? It increases the width of the floodplain. So I've explained my point and I've also qualified it, which means I've explained it in full to make sure that it's well explained, and you can get all the 2 marks for that because we explained it in full. The next one is deposition of fertile soil materials. It improves the nature and the amount of vegetation available on the floodplain. There is deposition of fertile soils in the Fluvial alluvium. That's what happened. But what is the impact of the deposition of that fertile soil materials? It improves the nature and the amount of vegetation available on the floodplain, because this is improving the soil fertility. So it means it's actually encouraging natural plant growth. That's basically what we are talking about on the floodplain. That's basically what we are saying. So there is deposition of fertile soil materials which improve the nature and the amount of vegetation on the floodplain. Then we can also talk about the deposition of alluvium. It increases the quality of the soil. Deposition of alluvium, that's what happened. What does it do? It improves the quality of the soil. Okay. Then we can also say that levees form on the floodplain as the flooding occurs, which means we are saying now the raised banks, which is going to prevent flooding. That's basically what we are doing, what we're trying to say. So the levees form on the floodplain as flooding occurs. Then it creates wetlands, which are habitats for living organisms. That's something that can happen also as a physical impact of flooding on the floodplain. Increase in soil moisture content that supports vegetation and improves biodiversity. We can also talk about the water table rises, resulting in meshes and flies, wetlands on the floodplain. That's something that we can talk about. The biodiversity of the floodplain alters to adapt to the changing conditions, which means continuous flooding or submerge negatively impacts on the natural vegetation and floodplain. So those are some of the things that you can actually include in as far as your paragraph question is concerned. You have seen how we have responded to this question. We have the factor and the qualifier, the factor and the qualifier. So that is your answer for 2.4.4. That takes us to the end of this question, which is about the fluvial landform. That is the floodplain, which is found on the lower course of the river, where deposition is more dominant.